So now that we got our motherboard in, we can actually set the PC up, right? So you can get a better look at it and kind of see the way it's going to look when it's sitting in the case. I'm trying to get you guys some light here because I noticed it was kind of dark in spots. But the first thing I'm going to go for next is the CPU, just because it's probably the most expensive and I want to make sure I get it safe as possible. When you're doing this, you're basically just going to keep the contacts from getting messed up on the motherboard or on the CPU itself. And you can see that I'm actually touching in here. This is a plastic cover. It's supposed to keep the pins on the inside safe, because if they get messed up or bent in the least bit, it means a new motherboard. You don't have much of a choice. So I'm going to do that and show you guys kind of how I go about and do it with the best, hopefully the best lighting possible. Okay, so I'm going to take our processor here. You'll notice everything's sealed because basically they don't want people getting ripped off with, you know, bootleg kind of stuff that wasn't correct. So the factory seals everything so that if you peel off a sticker, basically you would know that someone has tampered with your case. So I know nobody's tampered with this one because both sides are sealed and they would have had to unseal that. So this came straight from Intel, and I'm sure that I have a good quality manufactured part. When you bring it out, the box is actually way bigger than the CPU itself. The CPU is pretty small in comparison with everything else. It's in this little plastic case. The only thing you really want to pay attention with the CPU is everything on top here is a heat sink. So if you're going to grab it, we usually try to grab it by the heat sink itself. Obviously, don't ever want to touch these, so that's really the key. But when you're opening it, it's not put in there very taut. It's really just sitting in there. You can grab the edges of the circuit board and you're still okay. And then you should just try to peel it out. You can kind of bend the package a little bit, as easy as possible. Okay. Now once you have it in hand, you want to try to go for the socket as quick as possible. That's less risk of static discharge anywhere else when you're out in the air. So you notice, if you end up in the middle and you have to put it back or you can't get it in the spot, I put it right back in the plastic and close the plastic up, and it's still perfectly safe. There's no reason you can't put it right back. Also, I want to point out right now, on this cover, it says install processor before removing cover. It makes sense to try to pull the plastic sheathing off before you put the processor in, but this actually helps with protection when we're installing. So all you have to do is, there's a little lever on the side, right? You guys can probably try to see there. You press it down until it makes contact with the board, and then you scoot it out until it pops up. And once it pops up, we can roll it back, and you can see how the whole processor socket clamshell's open. You do not want to leave this open any longer than you have to. There are a great number of pins underneath there, and the slightest touch can mess them up. So when you're going to do your processor, make sure you're all prepped and ready to go, right? I undo my latch, leave it there. Okay. I go ahead and I pull my processor out of the package. Then I lift my socket, and I'm going to go ahead and put my processor back in, and I'm going to change hands, but I'm going to grab it by the sides. And if you'll look real close, you'll see a little gold arrow on that tab. You'll also see the writing, right, is right side up. That should coincide with the motherboard in this direction. On the board, it's hard to see, but there is another little triangle down here that you match with the gold triangle you have on your chip. That shows you how to put corner to corner. Also, there's two little notches on the sides, right? They will only go in the socket one way. So literally all you have to do is get it about where you think it needs to go and drop it into place. If it doesn't go, that's perfectly fine. You can scoot it around gently until it gets into its spot. Now it's going to wiggle a little bit, but if it doesn't move very much, you're usually in good shape. Close your top lid, and you should make sure these tabs go underneath this screw, and then close. And if you did it right, your cover should automatically pop off, and there's nothing to remove. Now, my CPU is in, it's mounted, and I'm ready for the memory. So the next thing I wanted to show you guys is, this is all the stuff that comes with the motherboard. This is your Wi-Fi antenna. Kind of cool. These are our SATA cables we're going to use. Not this time, because we have a better way of connecting our hard drive. Those can just stay in the box. This is an extra screw for our M.2 drive we'll use later. So don't lose any of these parts. There's also, looks like a couple other M.2 screws for extras in case we would need them. That's a new one from last year. So I'm going to go into my book because I want to show you guys something. First of all, in the book, there is a drive for drivers. We're probably going to have a better way of dealing with that. Toss in the box. In your motherboard manual, you have all the different specifications of the stuff that's there. More importantly, this is where I'm going to double check and verify that I'm going to have my memory plugged into the right spots. On the board, they have a full layout of the board that's there. And if you look really closely, they have stuff labeled. Sorry, this is mirrored, so you guys are going to be backwards. They have stuff labeled A1, A2, B1, B2, all DDR4. That means everything here is channeled. So you need to make sure, right, according to RAM chapter, you have to make sure you plug your RAM into the right spots. I'm actually going to dig into the manual a little bit more, right? They talk a little bit about the processor, how to plug it in case you guys need it a little bit more. And you can see I'm going through all the power connections. They break out everything here so you can see it. They give you some details about our M.2 socket. This is where our hard drive is going to go. We're going to come back to that one here in a second. They tell a little bit more about that. Front panel audio. All right. Our troubleshooting status LEDs. Show you about that. BIOS setups. System info. Configuring a RAID. I may have skipped over it. I think I did. Oh, here we go. Yep, I did. They actually gave it right here, and I should have known because it says installing the memory. Should have known. If you look real close, there's a recommended dual channel configuration. It says if we have 2 modules, we should plug into port A2 and B2 so that we get dual channel configuration. That's the only way it should work. So, easy enough. We'll take out our memory modules and we'll plug into A2 and B2. Now on the board, you can't really tell from a distance. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. You can see our memory slots have little tabs. I usually tell people to go ahead and open all those tabs so you can plug your memory in. So the idea is to plug the memory in and the tabs will automatically close up on you. If you look right here, it says DDR4 A1, A2, B1, and B2. This is the layout they were talking about in the manual. It actually says first, and then it points to A2 and B2. So it says first, that's where you should plug in memory. That is this gray port and this gray port. So it's actually pretty easy. When you guys are going to plug in your memory, your RAM sticks, grab your RAM sticks, and I'll show you here in a second. All right, open them. They are going to want to stick into the top of the package because they're supposed to. This whole thing is all designer, right? This is all a heat sink on the top, so you guys can grab this wherever you want to. Now, if you look closely, I'm just basically going to align my notch which way it's supposed to go. You can try to put it in one way, but the notch doesn't line up. So it's very important. Don't smash it down. Do not. Pull it back out of the slot, spin it around, and put it in the right way. All you're going to do is align it with its tabs. I usually let it drop in. Then you give it a little push, and you hear it lock in. Same thing goes for this one. Right? I'm going to press it down, align it with the slot, let it drop, no force, push it in. All said and done. So if I ever wanted to remove one, or I put it in the wrong slot, take both tabs, press them down and out, and it should pop right out. Right? Easy peasy. So if you don't get it right or it doesn't go in even, pop them back out. Try to push in on both sides with even pressure. And now we got our memory and our CPU all installed. I think what we'll probably do is go ahead and move for the power supply.